Do, 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 do. Yes, I am a goofball. This is what I am. It's who I am. So, popping in a couple minutes in. Whoa, what's going on with the audio here? Oh, I know what's going on. Sorry, I had another window open. We don't need to hear myself in stereo. Good gravy. So, anyway, yeah, popping in a few minutes early because I figured maybe we can I can approach a couple of questions and maybe some announcements. So, and really, even though these are real sunglasses, these little white dots are very annoying. So I'm not going to leave these on. Whew, I just wanted to be funny because I bought those sunglasses just for fun for my videos, just to throw on every now and then, especially if somebody's being a smarty pants and I have to slap them down a little bit. It's always fun. But so I got to wear them every once in a while. Anyway, so Sacred Wonders Maine has asked a question about stretching videos. That is a good question. I'm not sure that I will do that, but really, uh, maybe I'll figure out a way to put it together. But I personally do not do yoga, do not recommend it. But the basic stretches that you find in ballet and a lot of martial arts, a lot of those can fit into, believe it or not, into just about anyone's exercise regimen because you don't have to be able to kick your leg up over your head or whatever, but the same basic principles to stretching apply. I will say this, you should never bounce, bounce, bounce like used to be done in the 70s, because that is a good way to pull a muscle. All your stretches should be very slow and gentle. You go as far as you can, you hold it for a few seconds and gently release. And then you can do that again. I say that do that every day. One of the ones I do is like sitting on the floor, putting my legs like this and keeping the feet flexed because I have funny socks and everything. Both feet, and then you're going to stretch forward, trying to reach your toes. By keeping the feet flexed, you're going to actually already lengthen the calf muscle. You can point it. You'll find if you point your feet, you'll be able to go down farther. But by keeping them flexed, it's just going to make a better stretch, and just work on trying to touch your toes. You don't have to do it standing up. You can do it sitting down. It's a common stretch we always used to do in ballet. And that's a really good one to keep your calves and your hamstrings in good, condition, stretching them out. So there's one idea. So maybe at some point. So let me explain. Let me explain the thumbnail picture. I was looking for something that didn't have kids in it that looked kind of nice that might convey. And I'll talk about it again later, but it is not my photo because I haven't had kids around here except for grandbabies, and we haven't built blanket forts in the house in many years. But I tell you what, it's a good example. So I thought it was a cute one. There were some others that were really cute, and people putting string lights in them and stuff. It's all fun. But believe it or not, those blanket kid forts can do a lot in a really, if it gets really cold and your power goes out, and you can really just kind of have an enclosed area. It'd probably be far easier than setting up a tent. But I shall go into more on that later. I just wanted to explain that thumbnail. Not my picture. I did borrow it. However, the picture in the announcement I made in the post on YouTube, on X, Instagram, and Facebook, that is something I did make years ago. I think it was a custom order, but I designed the crocheted scarf hat thing, a hoodie. I'm like, this would be a fun idea and I just made it up. And I do have a video on that, by the way. You can look up on my channel how to crochet a hooded scarf. It's actually pretty simple, a lot simpler than it may seem. If you crochet, of course. If you don't crochet, it might seem really difficult. But I also have a whole series, which I linked to in the description box, on how to Crochet 101, where I give all the basics and then some simple patterns that you can do. Most of them patterns I've created myself. So shalom, everyone. I will say that again when we hit noon and we get into the topic. So as a lot of you know, I like to come on early just to sort of chit chat, answer a few questions, talk about whatever, give people time to come in, and then we'll get more serious into the actual topic. So if you're, forgot to say this right at the start, if you came in here and you're watching the replay and you're like, I just want to get to the topic, push ahead about 15 minutes. I know last week I was more like 17 minutes in before I started because we got onto a topic. So that way you can get past all this stuff if you want, or you can just stay and listen and see me in my silly glasses. See, I rewinded to the beginning of this live and yeah, my silly glasses, my Thug Life glasses. Those were fun. Those were a fun thing to have, even though you can't just wear them. Those little white dots. You can actually see through the sunglasses as dark as they look, but the little white dots are opaque mostly. And you can't see through those. So you got these little white dots floating around everywhere you look. It's so annoying. So let me see if there was, and I'm leaving, even though the Feast of Tabernacles is now over, I'm still going to be leaving all this up throughout, probably all the way through November. Because you know what? It's pretty, it's fall. I used to always put up my fall decorations like end of September, early October, and leave them up for 2 months straight. That's just the way I did it. And it's pretty. And there was work involved in getting that stuff up there. So, and you guys can only see a part of it. Eventually I'll show at some point I will show a couple of pictures where you can see a little bit more of it because it's actually quite big. It goes the whole length of the room this way, or width of the room. The room is lengthwise here, width that way, which is 20 feet, I think. And then I got the little drapey fabric on each side and leaves and whatnot all the way down. So eventually I'll be able to share some photos. And no, we didn't go camping. It was a little bit, there was things about this year that were really disappointing because we had planned on doing so much more this year than we did last year, which last year was pretty good. We kind of switched back and forth, going to a friend's house. They came here, back and forth, back and forth. I think we even had a night where we were able to sit outside in the fire, but you got to realize around here, it is downpour season. We're into the downpour season. And last week was one of the worst so far. I had to clean out the chicken coop because it kind of got flooded. So at any rate, even though I just cleaned it out and put fresh straw in, I had to do it again. So it was just a series of events and we ended up spending most of it alone, but it was good. I think it was for the best because it gave Patrick and I a lot more time to do some more in-depth Bible study, prayer time, and just learning, trying to understand all these different things that we're trying to see and, that we're reading in the Bible and want to understand and clarify what they mean. I mean, no matter where you are in your faith, it doesn't matter. Nobody's got it all figured out. There's always going to be questions and things to study further. And we should never, ever, ever get prideful and think that we have it all figured out because we don't. And I think God does that for a reason because it keeps us having to go back and keep reading his word, right? Important. Got to keep reading. Hi, Tyler. Yes. Right. So I enjoy it. I enjoy just all the things that we've learned as a result. And it's been good. It's, you can't say there's anything wrong with that. Whether or not you think we should celebrate the feast or not as a believer, you're going to have to search that one out for yourself, but learning about them is beneficial to everyone because when you understand what they stand for and mean, it can really bring a depth into your relationship with Christ and to our Father and just a better understanding of who he is. So let's see. I think I had how much time do I have? I got 8 minutes. Okay, good. Let's see. Oh, I wanted to share this. I actually mention it in tomorrow's this and that video. So yeah, it's kind of funny because I shoot this and that video either on Wednesday or Thursday, depending on which day is actually free, because I'm constantly having to work around schedules with grandbabies, and I prefer they're not here if I can help it. It makes it a lot easier. But at any rate, even though that video was shot in the middle of the week, it doesn't publish till Monday, where when I'm live, well, I'm live. So anyway, somebody in a recent under a recent video, might have been last week's this and that, even though I wasn't asking for ideas on how to pad jars, if anyone was really listening to my point, it was about diversifying your food storage and not just putting things in jars. However, the best idea I have heard or read yet, and maybe somebody else has said this and I missed it, but this lady was talking about taking like the foods that either you already buy or you store in Mylar, making sure they're good heavy duty Mylar type bags. Like the Mother Earth product bags are a nice heavy duty Mylar with a Ziploc and a seal. Same thing with the Judy's powdered milk and heavy cream and whatnot products, or whatever. And this is so great. You take those and you put them between your jars, because you can get those, they're about like quart size bags. Put them between your jars, and that would not only give you padding for your jars, it would also not take up all of that precious space that things like bubble wrap and more could. And it would probably provide some of the better protection than certain other things like socks and whatnot that you can pull over your jars. Again, I'm going to say this again. Some of y'all must have some pretty dang big feet, because I did try, just out of curiosity, pulling one of Patrick's socks over a jar, and it just barely fit. Mine absolutely would not, because I mostly wear kids' socks, just like I wear kids' shoes. Yeah. So the sock thing, and I'm not willing to give up all my great socks to pad my jars either. So, and then run out and have to buy a whole bunch more. But it's a good idea if it works for you and your feet are big enough. Or maybe you just got to run to the store and buy some cheap socks that are in the biggest size you can find. So unless, of course, you're putting them over, I could pull my sock over a half pint jar. That would probably work. But I'm not interested. So anyway, I wanted to share that. I thought that was a really great idea on the food that's already in bags, and then packing them in between your jars. That way you're getting the best of both worlds. You're getting the padding and making the most of your food storage space, and not having to lose all your food storage space due to the padding. So what else? And where I buy my herbs, I get this question so often. I've done videos on it, but I realized the last standalone video I did on that, it needs to be updated, because I'm not talking about Azure Standard in that one, I don't think. So right now, the number one place I look, the very first place I look now, if I need to buy an herb, because I either want to try it out, it's something I can't grow, or just I'm not growing yet, I always look at Azure Standard first, because they're getting more and more of that kind of stuff in for a very good price. Most, if not all of it, is organic and well-sourced. My second two favorite places are Frontier Co-op. They have their own storefront on Amazon, and Anthony's Goods also has their own storefront on Amazon. Now, Frontier, I know, can be found in other places, sometimes in physical stores. We don't have a physical health store around here. So we kind of rely a lot on the internet. I know Vitacost is another place I do like to buy stuff, for those who hate Amazon, and they do have some Frontier Co-op stuff, but not near as much as what is carried on Amazon. So just wanted to throw that one out there again. And let me see any other questions I can approach in the last few minutes that may have come in. Yeah, right. It's really, yeah, we got littles running around. I do have that video I did a couple of years ago when Jace was just a little baby, and he wasn't running around yet, but I was watching him that day, and it was a video I did on the benefits of cloves. So I had him in like a little bouncer right at my feet in this room here. And he kept through the video squealing, and he was just happy. I think he thought the whole time I was recording that video, I was talking to him. So what I did is I took most of those, quite a bit of those, the cutest parts out, but there was a lot more to it than that. And then put it into one clip and then stuck it at the end of the video as outtakes. And then I also made a separate little short with the outtakes. Let's see. Palmetto Paratrooper says, when I was renting in suburbia, the power went out and I went into the tall crawl space and built a rocket stove from cinder blocks so I could feed it twigs and keep my family warm. Very good. So yes, this is what we want to see, is comments and ideas from other people as well, because as with any of us, we're going to always have ideas that we've either tried, used, or heard about. And it doesn't mean there's not a ton more out there. Everybody's going to have their own things that they may have come up with that, you know, in a situation like that, that worked for them. Just like that time I've shared a few times about, you know, long before we had solar power, and I think we had a power outage in the middle of summer, so we didn't have the wood stove going, and I didn't have any way at the time to heat up. I don't even think we had our generator then, so I had no way to heat up Patrick's coffee, which thankfully was already made. So I took the turkey, or I keep saying turkey, the beer can chicken thing. It's just a little stainless steel stand. You put a half empty can of beer inside it, and then you pull the chicken down over the top and you barbecue it, and it just makes it tender and yummy, and it's wonderful. Well, I use that and put candles at the base, obviously with no beer can, no chicken, and then set a little pot right on the top and put the coffee in there and then let it heat up by the candles. It took quite a while, but it worked. It got his coffee hot, and I was able to send him to work with some hot coffee in his mug. So always something. And let's see. I will bring up the Crisco candle thing again, since I see that in the chat. And I know I approached this somewhere. I can't remember where. I've mentioned it in a couple of videos even recently. Maybe it was in a recent live show. Here's why I personally don't recommend Crisco for candles. So many years ago, I used to use Crisco like a lot of people, and then until I learned how bad it was for you, and was going to toss it out, but then had heard something about Crisco candles and thought, okay, I'll just use those. I'll just make candles out of those. That's a great idea. So I don't have to totally toss it. And I did that, and I actually used them for a little while, but it doesn't take long, especially when you're burning it, for that Crisco to go rancid and then make a terrible smell. So especially if you're going to buy a massive can of it and stick a wick down in it, I don't recommend it. Do not, unless you want, because you're probably going to end up throwing it out before you use it all, because it doesn't smell good. It goes rancid. It's nasty. So that's my 2 cents. Now, you might be able to take that Crisco, if you've already bought it, and put it in smaller jars and put tight fitting, even vacuum seal it into the jars, and then put that up, because the vacuum sealing it, like if you're using canning jars, the vacuum sealing of it will prevent it from going rancid. And then when you go to make your candles, just make a couple at a time and make them small so that you can burn through them quickly. That would be my recommendation if you've already purchased that. So my first live with you. Doing good, Corrine. And thank you for popping in. Okay, so it's 12:01. It's time to get started. And guess what? We may have a special guest today again. So hello, everyone out there. Thanks for stopping in. God bless. I appreciate you being here. So let's get to this topic. And the topic is staying warm in the event of a power outage. Now, the obvious thing is, if you have a wood stove, you'll be able to keep warm. You'll be able to dry stuff. You'll be able to heat water. You'll be able to cook food. We're not talking about that today, because that is just not an option for quite a number of people. So for some people, it's space. For some people, it's the cost. For some people, it's that maybe they're renting or even live in a place where you are not allowed to have a wood stove, which is dumb, but that they can make things illegal that used to always be just a standard, even just an open fireplace, because people needed those things. And here he comes. Let me scoot over this way and make room. He can come in as long as he's quiet. The dog is following Patrick in. So, yeah, nothing keeps you warm like a few skills and a forest. LOL. So the point is, I want to bring up ideas that you can use no matter where you live and no matter what your situation, if you don't have or can't have a wood stove. I mean, I do take a little bit of issue sometimes when people talk about these things, even though we have a wood stove. I love it. And I do highly recommend it if you can. The problem is when we start talking about things that are really out of people's price range or other reasons why they can't have it, then sometimes people it can really dishearten people. And so we got to remember to approach things from other viewpoints. So just like the thumbnail photo that I chose, that I was looking around on the internet for something to put in there, it wasn't ours, of a kitty fort that was made in the middle of a living room, in kind of a more, that's a great way, especially at night when you're trying to sleep. Make a kitty fort. If you don't have a tent or you don't have the room to set up a tent in the middle of your living room or wherever, make kitty forts. Everybody has blankets, sheets, and more that they can just make an enclosed area that you can stay warm in. And that will do a lot. Obviously, in that case, you would definitely want to have, for lighting, something that is, well, like those little LED candles I was talking about, because you wouldn't want something with an open flame in there, especially if you're needing some kind of night light. That just wouldn't be wise. So like in a couple of live shows back where I was talking about off-grid lighting, and I showed you, I wish I would have thought to have them a little more handy, the little LED candles. There's all kinds of different ones that you can get, or even the solar lights for those of you who get lots of sun in the middle of winter. That's just a weird thing for us. That's unheard of around here. But enough sun to charge up your solar lights that they'll keep lit all night. That's just weird. That don't happen around here.
Go capitalize on your little kitty fort thing, because they also make little insulated tents that you could put up in your living room or whatever, and then
they kind of look like coffins.
Just make sure you get some all weather or all season sleeping bags. Keep those on hand. Some of those things are relatively inexpensive, or people can work into their budget. So if you kind of plan these things ahead, it's like, well, I don't have a firewood stove. I can't afford a firewood stove. Well, do you know somebody you can network with that has a firewood or fireplace or wood stove or alternate energy? And if you do have these alternate energies, do you have the fuel to sustain them? Get firewood, store it, dry it, keep it dry. I'm a little guilty of that. I just finished putting together my wood shed that needed to be replaced for years. And so that holds about 5 cord of wood. And so I just started filling that up this winter. So we've kind of been, burning mixed dry and wet firewood for the last couple of years, actually.
Well, yeah, but then also making the most of what you had to take apart, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And I was thinking my hillbilly piles, and she's been lamenting about my hillbilly
piles all over the place.
Not liking my hillbilly piles, and I save every scrap of wood.
Yes.
Kind of a hoarder. And so after a while, those things kind of get to the point where you can't use them because they're getting a little bit rotten or whatever.
Yes.
So
And
just
then
went
become
ahead and-
firewood, and it's great. That's, in fact, for about a month straight, we've been heating our house with hillbilly pile scraps that he cut up.
Makes her happy.
Thank you,
and it makes us
Patrick.
both warm.
And we appreciate that.
So anyway, there are creative ways that you can do things, but
Right.
the other thing is propane. You can use propane every now and then, if you can afford it. Get yourself another 3 or 5 gallon propane tank and fill it up and store it somewhere, and have a propane stove or some kind of device that you can use for heating your home, for heating a room or a small space. Just make sure your ventilation is
Right.
and your
Right.
CO2 detectors are up to snuff.
Yeah. I'd get personally, I know I'd get nervous about the kerosene heaters, but you know, they do make them where they can be used, and diesel.
Yeah.
You know, they make them for camping and
Mhm.
whatnot. And, you know, so, but yeah, definitely the ventilation is a big thing. So now I want to bring up something I've actually brought up in a previous video where I was talking about money, you know, money saving tips, you know, like the freezer quilt, and how that played into the, you know, you're making window quilts. So look at ways that you can better insulate your windows that can keep the cold air from coming in. I've seen a lot of things where people have used bubble wrap. They save their bubble wrap and they simply spray the bubble wrap or the window with water. You know, obviously you cut it to fit the window and you just stick it on there. You just put it on there. It's not glued in place, and it will just stick and it will stay there as long as you need it to. And it can do a lot to prevent the cold air from coming in, or the heat, the warm air from escaping. But one of the things, well, and then you got shutters. Let me, before I go into my little story, what are some other things I wrote down?
Well, I was thinking of people who say, well, I can't afford this and I can't afford that. I get it. We're all on a budget. Things are getting more expensive all the time, but cardboard. Go down to your local grocery store, and they have cardboard boxes. You can, you know, might sound kind of silly right now, but in an emergency situation, you could hem yourself in a little bit with more cardboard in the windows, and
Right.
you know, make yourself a fort.
I mean, everybody's got, these days seems like they have something coming in from somewhere, be it Azure Standard, Misfits Market, Butcher Box, Amazon, Vitacost.
Yeah, but if you can't afford those things,
Right.
you might be having to go down to the grocery
if
store.
you're one like me that prefers to do her shopping from home and not have to leave the house, I hate shopping.
Mm-hmm.
But it always takes 10 times longer when you have to go do it physically. And it's like, I'm on a time budget here. So anyway, there's that. There's, you know, and then if you can afford it, having something more permanent like shutters, you know, that you could put on the outside, that's obviously going to be more expensive. But once it's put into place, that's something you can easily shut and as needed. Newspaper for window cracks. I used to take like rolled up dish towels and put them in the window track to help, because sometimes that's a good place or a bad place where air can go in and out. So the story I was going to share that I did one year, because we don't get super harsh winters here very often, but it definitely can happen.
Mm-hmm.
And quite a few years ago, back before I got the curtains I have now on all my sliding glass doors and whatnot, I had I wanted to, you know, I had made some curtains as cheaply as I could to put on my sliding glass doors so that, you know, for privacy. And so what I had done was I went down to the local store. I bought the cheapest sheets they had, which were microfiber sheets, you know, in the color I liked. And that way I could just make a casing, made myself some curtains. Well, you know, that was great until we had that really, really cold snap, and you could just feel the cold air coming through. And
you could actually see it, you know, the wind, yeah.
And it also didn't help that we also have the dog door that Patrick did a video on several years ago for the sliding glass door. So we didn't have to keep opening and closing the door for the dogs. And so that the sliding glass door, the opening is actually shorter because we have this little narrow dog door. So it's this wooden strip. If you go look for that video, you'll find it. And then at the bottom, we now have a curtain, a very, very thick curtain I've made for the opening to in and out, for the dogs to go in and out. But even then, it still can make a little bit of breeze. And shutting those curtains all the way, I mean, the dogs could still get through there. It wasn't enough to keep that cold air from going in and out. So I was just like, man, I'm really trying to get it to stay warm in here. It's like all this wood heat is just going right outside. So I simply took a big king size cotton sheet that I had on hand and wasn't using, and just got some clothespins and pinned it to the top. It didn't look pretty, but I was amazed how that one thin, flat sheet, I didn't have it bunched or anything. It was just flat across, made a huge difference in how well it held the heat in. And so some of that too is the fact that you've got layers. Layers can make a really big difference because you've got that airspace in between, and that's kind of what almost like an insulative layer of its own. And the same applies to the clothes that you wear. You know, if you don't want to wear, a lot of people think wearing layers of really, really tight clothing is going to keep them warm. So they might put on some kind of leggings, tight leggings, especially the ones that have a bunch of synthetic, you know, like lycra in them, and then putting layers over that. That is bad news. That's going to do very little to keep you warm. And in fact, it might make you colder. It could make you sweat, which would then make you colder, or it's just not going to keep you, it's not going to keep you warm the same way. Loose fitting natural clothing is going to be best, and in layers, for the same reason. So,
you know, if you think of like wool and insulation for a house, all that stuff, like the fiberglass insulation, there's more air in there than there is material.
right.
And so that layering makes, you know, that's the premise behind that. If you look at a pair of long johns, even a pair of cotton long johns, because wool makes me itch. If you look really closely at how that's put together and the material, those are actually little pockets that hold themselves away from the body. Yeah, the waffling, exactly.
It's made that way for a reason.
Yeah.
So yeah, so you can put on, you know, like some people were talking about the thermal, you know, and he mentioned that too. Your long johns, you have something like that, and you having a little bit loose fitting is going to be best. And then you can put on layers over the top of that. And that can do a lot to keep you warmer. And the nice thing is, if you get too hot, you can just take off some of your outer layers. I am a big one at wearing layers. So what do we got here? Tyler says some of the best cold weather long johns is made from poly netting, described as a series of holes held together by string. So, right. I'm looking at the reason I say mostly natural fabrics is they're going to breathe better. And that might sound like, well, I don't want something that's going to breathe. I want it to keep the cold air out. But you do need that breathability. It's really important, because if you do sweat, you know, you're going to want to be able to have that breathe. And then this is why wool is something that's often used, is because it's also good at wicking moisture.
Yeah.
And so, but I tell you, it is getting harder and harder. Like if you're looking for wool blankets, it's getting more and more impossible to find 100% wool blankets. They're usually a blend of 70-30, you know, 70% wool and 30% some synthetic fabric. So then, of course, you have your layers of your hats, your scarves, your mittens and whatnot. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, the photo I put of that, the hooded scarf, I have a video on how to make that. The fingerless gloves, I mean, obviously there's going to be times you want your fingers totally covered, but at least they'll keep your hands warm. You still have your fingers available to do things. I have patterns to make these things, but if you know how to crochet or knit, you can usually pretty quickly whip up some simple hats that will cover the ears. And while Obviously, natural fibers are going to be best. Sometimes you just got to use what you have on hand. It can be quite expensive getting wool or alpaca or even cotton, especially linen. It's hard to find linen yarn that's not more like a thread, and it is expensive, let me tell you. So I'm still live, Sherry. Oh, you just said I'm always too late. Well, you're not too late because I'm still live. You just missed the beginning, and you can go back later and watch it from the top.
That's okay,
So
Sherry.
it's okay.
I missed the beginning too.
Yeah, he did, but I told him to wait so I could have a little time by myself without his interruptions.
Why?
But I also wanted him in here because I knew that he would say things that I wouldn't think about or I'd forget about or something. So let me look quickly at my notes. See if there's, the closing off of rooms. So I talked about covering windows, how even just a sheet can make a big difference. And you can find whatever way to hang up a sheet. But you can also go, if you don't want to do the kiddie fort or a tent in your living room, just consider closing off rooms. It doesn't have to be complicated. In fact, when I changed out the curtains there are curtains I got for $10 at a garage sale, and they're heavy duty curtains. And I decided I was kind of tired of them. And so I changed them out, but I kept them because if we ever need to close off a section of the house, or maybe just the living room, those curtains will be great because they got the big holes. We can do whatever, if it's just using a tension rod or even just putting a couple of hooks in the wall and tying a rope and threading it through there. Those curtains will be great for closing off a room. And you can do the same thing with blankets, sheets, and more. Like I said, the old curtains, recycling curtains, and closing off rooms to make a smaller area that you need to heat, and then everybody just stays in that area. And then there was something else along with that I wanted to say. Oh, well, I mean, it's just like older homes used to commonly be built with or have the portieres. I remembered the word this time. Last time I was talking about it in live stream, the word just went out of my brain and I couldn't grasp it. And that was where you'd see those big, heavy drapes right in a doorway. And usually they were pretty, they looked really fancy, and they were held back by some fancy cording. And a lot of people might think those were just there to look pretty. No, that wasn't the purpose. The purpose was so that for this very thing, where you could close off rooms either for privacy or for keeping certain rooms warmer. Ooh, did somebody make a Princess Bride reference and I missed it? Oh, of course it would be Tyler. Mostly dead. I'm not even mostly dead. It's funny, I've been using that one a lot lately. Certain movies they're the best for the quotable quotes. One that I tend to use a lot, is that word you keep using. I don't think it means what you think it means. I see that one a lot because a lot of people are using words and I don't think they know what it means. So yeah, I say that one a lot. It's perfect. It's a great quote. So did Patrick have anything else to add while I look more through my notes?
Usually I can only think of things to add when you're talking. So.
And then you forget when I'm done.
Yeah.
Well, I did write down here, this isn't, again, it's one of those things that's not going to be doable for everyone, but they're and it's not going to do much. But the one thing about when it comes to lighting, having light sources that are natural, that have open flames, is they do add a little bit of heat. It's not going to be much. And of course, you've got to take on some extra measures of using precautions. And that's why I said when it comes to making kiddie forts to stay warm, don't use them in those. Not a good idea. But I remember I keep seeing this thing, and I'm hoping somebody in the chat will say if they know, if they've tried this, this whole thing about the terracotta pots and candles, like you have a couple different terracotta pots and you use candles and it can put out a lot of heat. I've never tried it. I've seen it. I've been curious. Patrick doesn't think it would be very effective.
Well, what is it, like a law of physics or something like that? You can't multiply energy. So some of these self-perpetuating things that create more energy than you're putting into them. I guess I'm a little old-fashioned. I still don't believe that you can stick a small candle will only put so many BTUs out.
Wendy B says, I've tried it. It does put out heat.
Well, it puts out heat, but I'm not saying that. But
heat?
I'm saying that, let's say a candle puts out so many BTU, I don't think you can multiply that.
And Michelle says, I've tried it. Meh. So I guess it depends on how much heat you're looking for.
Now, clay and things like that can retain heat because you have like a biomass. What's the correct term? Help me out, Tyler. Not biomass, but something that takes a while to heat up. And because it takes a while to heat up, it takes a while for it to cool down again. So
thermal mass.
Thermal mass, that's it.
Thank you, Tyler.
Yeah. So in my opinion, you can't get more out of energy than you put into it. That's electricity,
look for a link.
Kinetic energy, all these different things. You can make a transfer of energy, but you always have energy loss, and loss can be due to heat and everything else. I know I could be, somebody could correct me on that, but
I'm gathering a link. Hang on. No, you can keep talking. I'm just letting people know what I'm doing here.
Okay. So anyway, if anybody has anything to add to that, or correct me, I'd be willing to go back through the comments and listen and learn.
Yeah, it sounds like the whole clay pot thing it's kind of, yeah. It seems
I think the clay pot is so you're putting a small flame, underneath a mass, a larger object than what the candle is. So that small candle in that small space will heat up that terracotta pot, and so that will retain the heat. So if you put your hands on there, that feels good. That definitely can help with your fingers and toes and whatnot. But I don't think as far as adding to or multiplying that power source is going to.
Wendy did say, I would not rely on it in winter in Alaska. So by the way, I put Tyler's, we were talking to him on the phone the other day, and I only just realized he had a second channel. It's more about his homesteading on their newer place. So that's what that link is for. If you'd like to go check him out. Tyler's a good guy. He's got a book out called 11th Hour Preparedness. At least one book. I always forget. I was thinking he had a second one, but I'm not sure. I could be wrong. But so back to now the heating. This was brought up a few times. Like Linda Chandler brought it up about heating bricks or rocks, that you can keep in an area. Of course, you still have to have a way to heat those things. And if you don't have power and you don't have a wood stove, I'm not really sure how you do that. Maybe you can build a fire outside, or maybe have some other kind of heat source. I'm not sure what would be the best way to heat something like that up that you can then use as.
And bring back in.
Yeah, you bring it in and, like, say you put it in your little tent or fort or wherever. Of course,
yeah, I mean that's I mean, you could, but the effort of running back and forth inside and outside may or may not work. But yeah, I mean, it's possible.
Yeah, you just have to have a way to heat them up.
Yeah.
So, hello, Aline. See, you're here. And then thanks again, Deb, for being in here and coming in nice and early and being ready to put the stock down. In fact, while I'm thinking about it, I'm going to assign somebody else. I hope Tyler does not mind if I also make him a moderator.
This is a dictatorship, not a.
It is. It is.
You will become.
I don't see anybody misbehaving, so. But, you just never know. You get those
Hey, Tyler, would you
trolls.
like to be a moderator?
Yeah, I'm just gonna do it, and if you don't like it, let me know, and I'll remove you. It doesn't mean you have to be here every week. So this is the one thing you got to know is if you. I used to have a. Does that mean I have to moderate myself? Well, I can always moderate you if I have to.
That's a good question.
But I know I had a lot of channels that kept making me moderators, and then I felt obligated to always have to be in there or moderator. Patrick and I are moderators for quite a few channels, but we're hardly ever there for their live feed. I finally stopped in and watched a little bit of Tag and Bees, the latest one. I hadn't been in there in a long time. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm a moderator. I forgot. It's been so long since I've been in there. But it just means that it's just they're kind of like our security guards. If somebody gets out of hand or posts, they shouldn't have bad words come through because I have my security settings on that pretty high. Security settings, whatever, to prevent bad words from coming in. And but if people are trying to start something with somebody else or get too heavily, I try to stay out of the political discussions because it can just, no matter where anyone stands, it can get ugly. So I try to avoid those. So that's what the moderators are there for, because I'm not always going to see it. Yeah. Especially when I'm yammering on about something and I can't stare at the screen, and Mr. Rain's not always here to see it for me. But he's a moderator on here too, in case you didn't notice when he did say hi. But yeah. But let's see what else. I think I've mentioned most things. I'm sure there's something I forgot. See, so insulating doors, windows, and the rock thing or bricks. And then one thing Patrick said the other day when I was kind of coming up with this theme is one thing he did bring up is that, make sure that your rigs are stocked with necessary supplies in case it just gets too bad and you need to just get out. So this is why we have go bags or bug out bags, whatever you want to call them. But we always try to keep stuff in our rig so we don't even have to think about it. So that, whether it be water, some types of easy to eat food right out of the can or jar, and things like that, in case we just have to put on our boots and scoot. Kind of like the boot, scoot, and boogie. Right out. And so, and that's gonna go for any situation. And I plan on next week going more into depth on that. But if you'd like more ideas, I do have a video series called a playlist called On the Go Preparedness. And I start from my smallest little bag, and kind of work my way up, going through some of the different things. And I never did get around to doing the one on car preparedness. I think I kind of mentioned a few things, but
regardless of what there's a lot of people that might say, "Oh, you guys are conspiracy theorists or preppers or something like that." No, we're more like realists. Whether or not you believe in EMP or any of this other stuff that would label us as tinfoil hat folks, you gotta look around you. We live on a planet that the weather can change in a moment's notice. The economy can change at a moment's notice. We've seen all that in recent history. We've seen that in distant history. Natural events, natural emergencies come. So, having a little bit squirreled away, and thinking through these things is really important. So you making fun of me?
No, I was laughing at Linda saying, I believe in tornadoes and hurricanes and earthquakes.
Yeah, right.
That good enough?
Yeah, absolutely. Just look at history. Look at history.
Look at just a few weeks ago.
Volcanoes happen. We were right next to the strength, the ring of fire, and
Yep.
wherever you're at in the world, you have something close by that is just an accident waiting to happen. So being
Right.
prepared is a good idea.
One of the sad things, though, I have noticed since I really started getting more serious, or we started getting more serious into just being prepared. Because, we started doing it because we were seeing, oh, well, we got all these power outages. I've talked about that. We always have every year. We just had one last week, another one, big deal, because we're used to these things and we're prepared. Yet there's still always people that were born and raised in this area that put up with that have to go through these power outages every single year, and they get on Facebook every time there's another one and whine about it. And it's like, why? You've lived here long enough to know better. But even when it happens directly to them, they still will not take a hint, and they'll not do it. And these days, being prepared on just even a small level is so inexpensive and doable. Anyone can do it.
Yeah, one bite at a time. Yeah.
Right. It's like I keep bringing up the LED candles, and the reason I do is because not only are they kid friendly and pet friendly, they are cheaper than buying wax candles. They are so cheap, and anybody can just, anyway, if you can run down. You guys are going to get mad at me because I'm going to bring this up again. You can save yourself a couple of trips, or maybe even one, depending on what you buy, to the coffee stand, take that money and buy yourself a box of 24 LED candles. How hard is that?
Well,
so
coffee is pretty necessary, Heidi. Yeah, so.
Okay, what did Tyler say now? I saw Deb. She's like, exactly, Tyler. There's got to be something good here. Tornadoes, hurricanes, and earthquakes are real. Santa, the Easter Bunny, and the Tooth Fairy are not. It's okay to believe, but make good choices. You have chosen wisely. Yes. We lie. Well, yes, we didn't lie to our children about Santa, Easter Bunny, and whatnot, but people will lie to their kids about these things. And then one of these days they have to grow up and realize their parents have been lying to them. But then people who just prepare for the very real disasters, even crazy. The ones that happen in their own area on a regular basis, are wacko. It's like, okay then. Mm-hmm. Okay then. So about the battery candles, I bought some. Such a great idea.
For the people,
I use them a lot.
Oh,
sorry. No, I was reading the comment. Go ahead.
I say for the people who say, leave it in God's hands. Well, that's true, but it's really important that you say, okay, well, God has given me a brain to think about these kinds of things, not necessarily to worry. That's a different thing.
Right. Different.
But to be wise and say, hey, if you can, cans of chili, it's not a bad idea. A little bit of extra water on hand, that's not a bad idea. You look at the recent, well, it's getting to be a distant recent, but remember the whole debacle about toilet paper and one of her videos.
My first video to really go viral was about what to do when the toilet paper's gone.
And, anyway, use a little discernment. Yes, you have to trust in God. We have to believe that He's got things under control, but it also might be up to us to do a little bit of planning.
Right. And the thing I always like to add to that, I mean, we all know, and a lot of those more into preparedness to say, well, what about, there's Noah and there's Joseph. Yes, but let's add to that. God told Noah and gave Joseph also instructions, or at least let him know what was going to happen. He did not come down and build the ark for Noah and his sons.
They listened.
He did not come down and start filling those silos with grain. Mm-hmm. They were obedient. And so we can trust in God and have utter faith in Him, and also take into the account that it's possible that everything we do physically can still be taken away in a heartbeat. But we still have to be responsible and use the brain that we were given. And that's what I have to say about that. Dun, 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 dun. Okay. Had to do it again. I noticed they were still sitting there, so you know.
Did you do that earlier?
I did. I started off that way. I had them on when I turned it on. God told Noah, prepare. You fill in the blanks. You know, right. And one thing I do want to say, and I don't want to make, I'm not trying to be controversial, but one thing that people say a lot, which we know is that, you know, most people know is not actually scripture, is God helps those that helps themselves. I understand where this comes from. But we also have to remember that God also helps the helpless, and we have to be able to want to do that as well. So God gives us a brain, he gives us the instructions, he gives us the ability, and those are going to be different for each person. We also have to remember that. We should not say that person is not prepared like I am, so they're wrong. No, they're prepared in the way, you know, if they're doing it at all, they're prepared in the way they can and what works for them. It doesn't make their way better or worse than our own. And so we always got to remember that not everybody needs to build an ark, or not everybody needs to have a full grain silo, but everybody needs to have something that's going to work for them in their situation. We might need an ark. Well, we almost needed one last week.
I mean, it's not bad for everybody to have a grain silo. The impact be a lot less.
Right. I'm just
bloody.
Making a point. So not everybody has a grain silo or a space for one, but they might be able to make space to put some grains up in their home.
Well, you know, if you stop and think about it, you know, there's like a resealer 5-gallon bucket or a resealer 55-gallon drum. Then you have the bands around them. You can seal them. I mean, how much would you have to sacrifice in order to get one of those filled up with rice, beans, or some other basic food group, or a lot of different food groups? You know, you just, you know, what does a 50-pound bag of beans cost, or corn?
And the reason a lot of people, the reason a lot of people say rice and beans is simply because they're some of the cheapest things that you can buy, right, and some of the most long lasting. Though right, beans can get harder and harder and harder and be almost impossible to cook, they can still be ground into flour. So this is why these things are mentioned. But obviously, if you hate rice and you hate beans, then find what you like and put that up. Maybe it's oats, maybe it's barley, maybe it's something, because, you know, things that a lot of these whole grains, like even barley, wheat, especially a soft white wheat, these can actually be cooked up and used as a cereal if you wanted to, just like white rice can be used as a cereal replacement. I mean, you know, and then you got things like cornmeal mush. I mean, there's a lot of things that can be done with grains that you like. So I was going to see.
I suppose if I get really hungry, I'll start liking some different things, you know.
Yeah, because there's plenty. Out of the two of us, he is the more picky eater, but
Well, I guess what I'm saying is that, well, if you don't like beans, you don't
right,
like this, you don't
or
like this,
yeah,
you know, you might find out that you like them if you're starving to death.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, food fatigue and different things like that, you know, try to think of the things that you like. Yeah. You know, if you don't like a whole bunch of freeze-dried whatever, well, avoid buying that, buy something else. But if you can't afford to buy the things that you like, just to get yourself set up, you might consider, well, I'm not really crazy about beans, but beans are cheap. And I don't really like rice, but rice is cheap. I can tolerate it, but, you know, at least it's, what do you call it?
Might have missed it last
tolerable.
time. I try to skip the ads when I see it pop up, now that I know I can. Because when I go live, for some reason, the live shows are the one thing where I cannot disable the mid-roll ads until after the show is over and the video has processed.
Mm.
Then I can go back in there and remove the mid-roll ads. It's the only one that's like that. All the other ones I have, there's a little box you can check or not check for mid-roll ads. And I always try to keep those out. So I'm just letting you guys know people that know I don't like mid-roll ads. So when I'm starting it, I have no other option, but I can select the farthest time, which is 30 minutes apart, which is what I try to go for. But I only noticed last week when they'll start to come up, they actually let me know down here and I can skip them. So I'm guessing since we're already an hour into this, I probably missed it the last time. So sorry about that. But anyway, that's what I do. I try to miss those. Yes, I could make more money if I leave all that in, but it's more valuable to me to not be interrupted.
Well, maybe
So
at
why
some
are you
point,
here? Oh, just kidding.
maybe at some point we'll have to let those things roll.
Oh, yeah. I'm
Anyway.
hoping not to. I'm hoping not to. Yeah. It's getting more and more difficult on both Rumble and YouTube to actually.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Don't digress.
Yes, I'll try not to digress into that. It's a frustrating, painful subject. But with all the work that goes into it, let me double check. I think I had a couple more things that I don't think I had this. I don't think I'm going to talk about that. I already talked about those. So I think I covered all of my things.
Pert near everything, huh?
So we can stay on for a few more minutes. Yeah, I've heard that about the beans. If you take, I think I tried it one time and it didn't work for me. But if you have some beans that will not cook up, if you add a little bit of baking soda to it, it's supposed to soften them. I've had a lot of people say that, but
I wonder, you know how kiwi will tenderize meat?
ooh,
I wonder if the same thing would be true for doing something like that
interesting
would have
thought.
an acid to
That's
it.
some of that, or even vinegar. By the way, he mentioned kiwi. I think I said this in my carne asada video I did a few years ago, but one of the best and quickest meat tenderizers that you have to actually be careful not to use too much because it can tenderize your meat so much it turns to mush. But if you're marinating meat for like carne asada or whatever else, a little bit of mashed kiwi into the brine will tenderize that meat like nobody's business. Leave out the wine, leave out the vinegar, a little bit of mashed kiwi. It's amazing. It's amazing. One time, the first time I tried it, I was making carne asada. I'm like, oh, I'm going to try this. And I put too much and the meat was, when we went to try to barbecue it, it was practically just falling apart before we could even cook it. So you have to actually be able pineapple. I wondered about that too, Deb. I figured pineapple would probably be another one. I haven't tried that. I just know that kiwi works well. I tend to use homemade wine quite a bit for marinades, but if I have kiwi and I got some tough meat or I'm making carne asada, if I happen to have the kiwi on hand, just mash a little bit. Maybe a teaspoon is all you need for a big bowl, maybe about like that.
Any more questions for
her? Yeah, Sybil, I never try to ask for anything, and I even feel a little bit embarrassed when people ask me this, but our P.O. box is always in the description. And so I have people send us books and goodies and stuff every so often. In fact, that's where when people don't want to use PayPal, they send money orders when they're ordering some of our goods, which I got to remember, I have 3 packages I got to wrap up when I'm done here to ship out, to get ready for shipping tomorrow. We got a half-gallon chamber, 4 things of skin cream, and the other thing I'm not allowed to talk about here, but it is a generator of some kind that makes a certain substance.
Makes a certain liquid.
Out of precious metal.
Yeah.
Some of you will know what I'm talking about. Some of you will probably still be like, what?
Free America.
Yeah.
Free speech.
Oh, yeah. It used to be totally fine. When I first started my channel, I'll talk about all that stuff. And all of a sudden, oh, this is stop. We're going to talk about it.
You can't say this. You can't say that.
So when we make goat cheese, baking soda turns hard cheese into a wonderful gooey Velveeta-like cheese. Oh, that's right. You were telling us about that. Huh. Baking soda or sodium bicarbonate has so many great uses. In fact, my favorite laundry detergent recipe that I came up with, I came up with it, but it was after I did a little more research into finding what different people use to make their own, and decided I wanted to get away from using even my homemade soap. Was just a simple washing soda, which is sodium carbonate, and baking soda and salt. The three mixed together, so easy to whip up, so incredibly cheap, and it works great. I've had a lot of people come back and tell me you don't even need that much, like a tablespoon per load. Some people have told me they've only used a teaspoon and it worked great. Some people really like it. And I'm not saying everybody's going to love it, but it's worked good for us. Even though I almost never use my dishwasher or electric dishwasher, I have tried it in there. That worked pretty good. And I use it for scrubbing too, as a scouring powder for tubs and sinks and whatnot. So you can find it on my channel. It's super easy, super cheap. And then let's see, I also use baking soda in our tooth powder, but not alone. It's really a good idea if you're using baking soda to brush your teeth with, to mix it with some other things like maybe bentonite clay or even kaolin clay. What else do I throw in there? You can even add a little activated charcoal and whatnot. YouTube claims that when we quote medicinal professional declarations, we are guilty of presenting misinformation.
Well,
Dumb.
What'd they say about a certain
But they can quote all
plague that come along,
Yeah.
I'm hearing all kinds of bad stuff that happened from that, and
misinformation from both sides.
yeah,
that's the thing.
big pharma.
We made a certain precious metal liquid with help from Patrick and his instructions on how to build the generator. Cool. I think you told me that before. I forgot what I was going to say. I forgot I was starting to get off on a tangent there.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yes, Amy, I'm pretty sure I did bite my tongue. It's not bleeding now, so I'm okay. So many things we have to be careful about saying here. There was a time it was just like, get on here and talk about whatever you want, but now you just can't. You get slapped down pretty hard sometimes, and yeah. So I love my precious metal liquid. I also love, though, being able to be sneaky with our wording. Let's just switch up the wording, and we can still talk about whatever we want. We just got to be careful. So, let's see. Have you ever done soap from scratch? If you're talking to me, with ash lye. No, I have not. One of these days, though, I plan on doing it. The difficult thing for us is lye is best made with a hardwood ash, which we don't get as much of that here because of where we live. Most of the woods around here, or anything we're going to use for firewood, most of it, not all of it. Alder's a hardwood, right?
Alder's considered a hardwood. We have also broadleaf maple. We also have a smaller leaf maple, but it's harder wood. But yeah, hardwoods like oak and some of those other woods.
It's just not common.
It's not common here.
Yeah,
we have a lot of Douglas fir and hemlock and alder. Alder might make.
It might. We would just have to. We would have to make sure that when we're burning fires, that we keep the alder separate and only burn alder. Clean the fireplace out. Only burn with alder for a while, and then collect the ashes from that, and then use that to make the lye. And then you can make soap from that. You still have to have a fat, but as long as you have a way to make, as long as you have ashes, hardwood ashes, and you have some kind of fat, be it lard, be it coconut oil, whatever, then tallow, you can make soap out of just those two things. The reason why usually people are using three things is because the lye they're starting with is already in a crystal or okay, sorry, but there's a reason why we can't say things. It's because we can get in trouble for saying it. So I cannot get this to work for me. So sorry about that. And that means even allowing it in comments. So sorry, I'm not trying to be rude.
Not trying to be mean to you.
Just trying to protect everybody.
Safer channel.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, it's a constant trying to
Yeah, it's a shame. I
edit
never thought this
ourselves.
country would ever get to that point, but here we are.
So I better look.
I mean, everybody
because-
has a right to believe what they want to believe. I mean,
So just find another way to word it where you're not using those two words together, and it'll be fine. Yes, it's great for pink eye sauce. Yes. In fact, I used it, and I've shared this so many times back when I could talk about it on here, but on my Rumble channel I can. But our older dog, she was Chihuahua. Her eyes weren't as buggy as some Chihuahuas, but a little bit. And as she got older, she was having a harder time seeing just because she was getting older. And my grapevines were still really young. And in the wintertime, they get like these little kind of sharp pieces sticking out. And she'd be sniffing around in there. And it happened a few times where she scratched her eye and got infected. And so I would put that in her eyes and just clear it right up. It worked really good.
Yeah.
But, and I've even used it in Cody because he had an eye infection. I've used that, and I've also used castor oil. And it works great for healing up those kind of infections.
Can you say that word?
Castor oil? I can say
Apparently.
I can say castor oil. I can't say the word that is the essential oil of pine. That one. It starts with a T. And that is actually the first video of mine that ever got removed from YouTube and put a so-called permanent warning on my channel, which I only noticed just the other day. Suddenly it was gone. I'm like, I thought it was permanent. So that's a good sign, I guess. I don't know what it means, but it's a good thing. But at any rate,
yeah, a lot of things in YouTube's are kind of
that
mystery.
particular video, the first one, that was the first one I put over on Rumble, and I've also pinned it because it was the first video. It's way at the bottom of the list. So what I've done is I pinned it to the top of my channel to make it easy to find. That way, if anyone wants to know what the video is, all you got to do is go to my Rumble link, and it's right there at the top. And I got to go in there and edit some of the stuff in there, though, because a lot of other videos have been removed. I keep forgetting to go back and edit. But it includes a link to an NIH publication that is still there, because I just looked today to make sure it was still there. An NIH publication on the therapeutic uses of that particular substance. It's still there on the NIH.
.gov website.
Yeah, it's a .gov. People, I still have people saying, I never use them because they lie. Well, they may, but that doesn't mean I throw the baby out with the bathwater. There's still great information if you know how to look.
You got to sort the truth out from fiction.
Right.
On a lot of things.
And it's no different than natural-based websites. They can have bad information too. Not everything, just because it's the most trustworthy source doesn't mean everything on there is right. It doesn't mean they're intentionally lying to you. It just means it might be bad information. You just got to vet everything, just like in the video that came out Friday. That's what I was talking about. And that's where somebody came in on, I think it was on the Rumble video, and say, well, I don't trust the NIH. And it's like, well, I get it. But again, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You'll be amazed at what you can find over there. And a lot of information on stuff we're not allowed to talk about on this particular platform, you can find over there. That is excellent.
Yeah, there's a lot of useful information. Your Department of Health, just because they're a government agency, doesn't necessarily mean that they have bad information. Print
it. Guess what? Sorry, Patrick, that particular publication is actually in a PDF form. You can save it. I saved it to my computer.
There's all kinds of survivalist type information on .gov sites. So I wouldn't throw it all out. I mean, there's good stuff in there,
Yes, I have a PO box.
What to keep on, what to keep in your car, and what to keep on hand. And usually that stuff is like, keep 3 days worth of this, that, and the other thing. But when you're in an emergency situation, 3 days can go by really fast.
Yeah.
So
yeah, they usually don't. They don't encourage you to go back, enough as far as a length of time, but you should always still start somewhere. I mean, if all you can put up right now is for 3 days, that is a great place to start. But then you set your next goal. This is the easiest way to look at it. Don't go, okay, I got to get 3 years worth of food storage put up ASAP. Don't do that, especially if you can't afford it or it's too stressful. One day at a time, right? So start with, I'm going to see if I can make sure I have 3 days worth of food and whatever else, toilet paper, blah, blah, blah. And then from there, expand. Okay, now I'm going to shoot for a week, 2 weeks, a month, and just do that as you're able. I mean, remember, every little bit you do is something and is better than doing nothing and just sitting back and say, oh, it is what it is. And, or it'll never happen here. It's about, again, taking that responsibility and just following through, taking the skills, the knowledge, the wisdom that God has given you and just doing something with it.
Right.
And not being, not just giving in and living in fear and saying, I'll never be able to do enough, so I'm just going to huddle and be afraid. And you don't want to do that either. That's not living.
The more you do and learn today is the less you have to do and learn tomorrow. And tomorrow is just going to get more expensive. So whatever you do today, if you have ways of preserving whatever it is you're trying to save is always a good thing. So if you're...
Somebody brought up Warclim in the comments.
Brought up what?
Some of you will get that is Warclim. Somebody said...
Oh.
If you guys watch American Homestead, you'll know.
Yeah.
Actually, it's not raining right now.
White, wet substance.
At the moment. It's actually sunny right now, but the last several nights we still had quite a bit of rain, but not like we did last week.
Can you say mood juice on here?
You can say mood juice.
Okay.
You just can't say
raw mood juice.
Yeah. And the MILK, you can't say them together. That can get you in trouble. Because we really don't live in a free country. And oh, yes, I understand. It's a private entity. They have a right to make their own rules. Do you really? Come on.
Yeah,
do you really think they're not being controlled by somebody higher up? And that's why you can't talk about that. Warclim is legal in Georgia now. Good. It's legal here too. A lot of people are surprised because they think that Washington State is wait, what does this say? They think that Washington State is just because it's so that one way that everything is illegal. Well, actually, you'd probably be surprised at some of the things that are legal here that aren't legal in states that you would expect them to be. So there's even stores around here, unfortunately not in our small town here, but in just 60 miles away, there are stores that sell the Warclim. And if you don't know what that means, just look at the words in reverse and you'll figure it out. They sell it. You can buy it by the gallon. And we have before when we've been, in there and able to do that. So there's even a dairy is where we get it from when we get a chance to, a big dairy, and it's organic. So yeah, let's see. We have to pick up Warclim at the farm here. Good thing we have. I really wish here more locally I could get it. I used to be able to get some from a friend who had goats, and she would just give us like sometimes as much as a gallon and a half every week. It was so generous. And she did it just out of the kindness of her heart because she had all of it and she appreciated what we're doing here on YouTube. But then she had to get rid of her goats. That's the only reason why that stopped. But it was very, very generous. I still appreciate all that she did. In fact, I have a video coming out that is a lot of the Wednesday videos you're seeing are videos that I shot back in 2016 or 2017 that I recently remastered and put them back out. So that I have a video coming out next week or this coming week. I can't remember. It's not too far away of taking that particular substance I was getting from my friend and turning it into farmer's cheese, but more than just that. I was also making 4 different, or maybe only did 2 in that one, but I have made different flavors. So it's showing different ways that you can flavor up the cheese and make it just more fun and interesting. So remastered Mark Williams means that they're the old videos that So this was back when I had just an old video camera. And the picture was kind of dark and grainy. The sound wasn't great. And I was, still kind of new to shooting videos. And so what I've done is, instead of shooting those videos again, some of those I've taken, it's like, man, this was a really great video if it wasn't for the sound and the poor lighting. So what I've done is, now that I have a decent video editor, unlike back then, I just had the free Windows movie editor that you can't even get on computers anymore. And I can actually brighten up the picture. I can zoom in on things, and I can increase the sound, the volume, so you can hear it better. Because I don't like wearing mics. I would be smacking that thing all the doggone time. So, and let's see, and just, adding pictures, things I couldn't do back then. I'd be adding pictures, text, whatever else to kind of update it, and even abbreviate it a little bit by taking out any unnecessary stuff I didn't need in there. So remastering some old videos and getting them back out there again in a better format so people can see them, and either watch them again in a better format or see them for the first time, because not everybody goes back and watches all your old videos. So God bless you in the last days. Jesus Christ is anyone's only hope. Please prepare for possible grid down, everyone, and water shortages. Water shortages coming, was prophesied, and might be soon. And that reminds me, don't forget to prepare your hearts, people. Prepare your hearts. Most important thing. Your hearts and your spirits.
Yeah, that's the only thing you're going to leave this earth with, is your soul. So
right.
That's the most important thing.
We have a local A2 herd. The doggone thing just kind of pops up there and then you lose it. I got to scroll up. Scroll up. I can't scroll up. Why is it not working? I'm trying to find. It's not letting me scroll up. I hate using this pad. Let's see. We use that, and our autistic grandson has been able to drink that too. That's great. I've heard a lot of good things about that. In fact, Azure Standard, which I always have a link to them in the description box, more and more, I know I say this a lot, I'm getting more and more of my stuff from Azure Standard that I would otherwise maybe buy other places. And they carry the powdered A2. So if you're looking for something, milk. So if you're looking for something to stock up on it, you're wanting to put up some powdered milk. It's whole milk, not that non-fat silliness or the 2% silliness.
Colored water.
Whole milk, A2 organic. You can get it from Azure Standard and stock up on that if you're not in a place where you can get the A2. And the nice thing about that is something that is, let's say you've got a nursing baby, just like with the goat's milk. If you've got a nursing baby, you don't have formula, which is bad news anyway, and you can't nurse that child. Though both of those, the A2 cow milk and the goat milk, are really great options. So some of you'll know that my youngest grandson, his mom, she tried and simply could not nurse him. She tried. She did the best she could. And he just wasn't, he was just getting so little from her that I just said, here's some powdered goat milk, follow the instructions, mix it up, start giving him that. And he immediately started, because he was getting skinnier and skinnier. And so he just immediately started putting on weight and was so healthy. In fact, it took her a long time to get him from drinking goat milk to cow milk, because he was so used to the goat milk. So anyway, either one is really good for a baby, that for newborns. In fact, I think some people don't realize that back in the day, they used to give newborns, if their mother couldn't nurse, they used to give them cow's milk. There's so much fear mongering over this. And the reason, and back then, you also didn't have so many people born with these milk allergies where they couldn't have that kind of milk. That's usually part of the problem. Or the store-bought cow milk it's just hardly milk anymore.
Yeah. And
so that's the other part of the problem.
We're starving to death. Don't even know it.
I have missed the hour of time with you. Catching you now. That's okay. That, it's a great thing, Deborah. There's always the playback. Friends don't let you drink skim milk. Yes. You know, it's just that there's healthy fat in there and flavor.
Water can only do so much for you. You got to get your nutrients from something.
Yeah, white water, gross. Just gross. So anyway, I kind of think that's it. I probably should go wrap up our packages so I can have them ready to ship out tomorrow. Got no, I guess we only have one grandbaby coming tomorrow, so it won't be too crazy around here tomorrow. But I still like to have them ready to go to get in the mail. So see, I can drink more Clem all day, but if I get something at Starbucks, I get all sorts of. You know, Patty, isn't that something? Yep. But even if you can't get it in the war, of course, that could be a bad word too. Shoot. You know, and if you can't get it in that form, even buying an organic pasteurized good quality, if that's all you can get, like Organic Valley and some others, that's still going to be far better than the other store-bought stuff. So anyway, look at this. I keep reading. My youngest son almost starved to death on doctor-ordered formula. Changed him to canned milk and became a healthy, chunky monkey. I like that because we always call Jace our Woolly Booger Monkey Toes because he was born with a lot of hair and long toes and fingers, and he loves bananas. So, but that, you know, I got to come back to this again. So what was funny was back then, and coming back to the story about my grandson, is the doctor was so concerned, and especially when she found out he was drinking goat milk, even though he was so healthy. You need to get him on human formula. Okay, let's stop and think how stupid that comment is. Human formula is breast milk. Formula is usually made from something not human. It's either going to be soy or cow. And it's not human. Cow milk that's been altered and blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's human formula. Are you kidding me? How dumb is that? There's nothing human about it.
And I have a question for everybody who questions that. Is it how did we survive for 6,000 years?
Right? Breast juice. For babies, yes. I mean, I have videos on making your own dairy-free milks, but I wouldn't say that for babies. Babies need that dairy milk. I mean, that's going to have to be up to the parent, but my personal opinion is that babies need the real dairy. Not, you know, almond milk, Brazil nut milk, cashew milk. These are all great. I have tons of videos on making your own dairy-free milks for those who can't have dairy, but you would be much better to get them on the A2 cow milk or the goat milk. They need that.
That's not medical advice, by the way.
Formula is that's personal opinion and experience here. So anyway, yeah, we didn't have the FDA all those years.
I don't see how mankind made it.
Read the labels on formula, please. Absolutely. In fact, I brought this up. I don't know, maybe I shouldn't. I think this is one of the things that got me in trouble in one of my videos, but I just won't say any names. But back then when I did that video, one of the video on the baby food that for some reason was labeled as medical misinformation, blah, blah, blah. Well, because they said I was using dangerous and harmful substances when I was using home canned green beans
and
that
a blender.
I pureed up in a blender, some things like that.
Maybe
real food that I was turning into baby food by mushing it up.
Maybe it's the blender that was.
I think what it was is because at the beginning of that video, I was talking about the importance of making it yourself because you can save money. And at that time that I was shooting that video, there were a whole bunch of recalls from big brand names, even the organic ones, baby food companies and formula companies, because they had found high amounts of heavy metals in them. Mm-hmm. So hopefully that doesn't get this video in trouble, but that's I won't mention any names. Maybe I mentioned names in that video. I don't recall. I know I showed pictures. So I don't know. That video's gone. They removed it. So anyway, yeah. So we really should get going, or at least I do. I don't know about him. He's obviously not up at the property today because it's too wet. It's not raining right now, but it's probably too wet. But I got stuff to do. And I'm going to take the little part that I taught, the main topic. I'm going to make a separate video that will publish a few weeks from now. So it can be a standalone where I can add photos and whatever else and edit out any stupidity from either one of us. And that's nice too for people that just want to replay or those who just don't like doing the live shows, which is totally fine. I get it. So anyway, I hope y'all enjoyed being here with us today. Thank you for coming in and being a part. Thank you for my moderators who were able to make it and stay as long as they can. And take care and God bless. Say goodnight, Gracie.